I'm Barry Malvers. I'm the chairman of the policy committee for Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. This is our regular November meeting of November 8th. It is 3:01. And I am officially calling, well, I'd like to say first, I appreciate everybody who bothered to come and to listen to what we do in relation to our policies for BDSN. And we ask that everybody would obviously follow those policies closely. That's why we do so much work to make them as we feel they should be and as the staff feels they should be. And so with that, I will call this meeting to order and ask that the statement of announcement be read by Ms. Lori Manus for me, please.
A meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the November 8th, 2022 Policy Committee meeting was distributed November 4th, 2022 to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. The public has been notified that accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistance, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance.
Thank you very much, ma'am. The next item on the agenda is the invocation, which I will give now for if y'all bear with me. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to be here again. Thank you for the opportunity we have seemingly at least each month to affect the policies of DDSN, which we hope in a positive way will affect the lives of those that we serve with disabilities. I would ask that you would be with each of us here today as we go through these policies. I would ask that you would be with us on election day and realize that whoever is elected to which office is not more important than you, and that you are the most important thing for those of us who are Christians, and we would hope that how that election would go would be as you would see fit. Keep us safe throughout the day and keep us safe from the impending storm that is coming over the next couple of days. We ask these things in Jesus' name, amen. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. As everybody knows, this meeting is ran by unanimous consent, so if I hear no objection in 3 seconds, I'm going to approve the agenda and every other item on here as I go down. So if anybody on the committee has an objection, please let me know. So if there's no objection, 3 seconds, the agenda is adopted. Okay, the agenda is adopted as written. The first item on the agenda, the next item on the agenda, sorry, not the first one, the fifth one actually, is to approve the summary notes of the October 11th Policy Committee meeting, which was, of course, last month. Again, if you'll notice, this thing says summary notes and not necessarily the minutes of the meeting. It really is a summary of the minutes, but it's all we feel is necessary for. It is certainly all that's necessary for Robert's Rules of Order, and all we feel is necessary for this. So I don't have any changes to that. If anybody has, if nobody has an objection, in 3 seconds, the minutes are adopted from last meeting. Okay, the minutes are adopted. The first item under old business is tab 2 of our agenda, which is the administrative standards, which we went through last month, and it went out for public comment, as everybody probably knows, and that there were several changes made. And there's one thing that I want to, or two things that I want to bring up regarding this that I suspect I didn't see, or one I didn't see and one I did, but they're on page 8 of number 303, section 303, which is on page 8 of our booklet, David, and page 8, Michelle, of your packet. And it talks about the governing body. And I was just thinking that we would consider, if the committee doesn't have an objection, that it would say that instead of just saying executive leadership, it would say employees, where it says employees, it would say at least one member of the executive leadership would have those qualifications instead of executive leadership, because to me that would imply a lot more than one person. And so we're trying to get to at least one person to have those and not necessarily a bunch of people, because it talks about different levels of experience, and some people, the CFO might be a different level of experience than one of these qualifications. And so I think it'd be better to say employees at least one member of the executive team to have these qualifications. The next item is the only other item on this I had, unless somebody else has something. I'm certainly open to suggestions, but the only other item I have was on page 9. I was thinking it should say, when it talks about, it's on number 305, when it talks about the record retention, it does say we have to have a record retention policy, but it should say something about how many years that they have to keep those records. Did y'all get any information about how many years that this law says or would say, Lori?
So the law is really just about FOIA, and FOIA is just about 12 months. So if you want to put an amount of years that they have to keep it over that, then we need to include it in the policy.
That's what I thought. So I would think, I don't know what the staff thinks or what the committee thinks, but I would think it would be 7 years that they would be asked to keep them in case we need them for that long. I mean, we may never need it for that long, but if we did and they didn't have them, then we'd wish they did. And by the way, I apologize for what's going on behind me, but that's my landscaping, which I couldn't control when they came. So anyway, that's what the sound is if you hear it. But anyway, I would think it would be 7 years. Does anybody have an objection to that?
Commissioner Malfros, I would just make something to consider. I did check our current records management policy, which is around individual service records, and the number of years in that policy is 6. So I didn't know if you wanted to be consistent with the records management policy or if you wanted to leave it at 7. Either one's fine. I just wanted you to know that.
Thank you. I didn't know exactly how many years it was. I think 6 is fine, but I do think it needs to be consistent. So if we want to consider changing our other policy at some point in the future, that would be fine. But for now, we'll say 6 if that's what it says.
Okay.
Unless anybody has an objection, that's the only other thing on this policy that I had. Those 2 things. Did you understand what I meant by the first thing, Lori, about the executive leadership?
Yes, and I have
a leader.
So
or
we'll
one
make
member?
both of those changes prior to bringing it to the commission next week for committee approval.
Okay. Yeah, we should see those changes before next week's committee approval. And so if there's no objection with those 2 changes, we're going to move in 3 seconds. If I don't hear anything, we're going to move to the next one. And I don't hear anything, so I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the central office telephone coverage, which is under tab 3. And you'll see the first item under that is 36708DD, which is we're asking to be made obsolete because it's actually a part of 2 other policies that we have that we have updated. And so I would ask that, so if I don't hear an objection in 3 seconds, that policy is going to be made obsolete. Again, it's 36708DD. Okay, that policy is made obsolete. Now, it is true that this policy was revised in June, but there was a couple of things that I still had concerns about after I read it again. And so the staff was nice enough to split this policy now into two different policies, and which we're going to go over now. There's only, I do think that we did a very good job. I mean, it wasn't a bad job before, but it's even better now on the phone policies, because it gets rid of things like a telephone credit card, which we don't have anymore, and also gets rid of what's called collect calls, which is no longer necessary because of cell phones and technology and things of that nature. So that's the two big changes. The only thing I would consider changing on this one, if nobody has an objection, is, and I'm not sure exactly where it would go, because I mean, I didn't study it that closely, but wherever it would go would be fine with me, but it just needs to be in here, it would seem to me, which is to say that that on page 34, it says that short or brief, it talks about short or brief calls, and it talks about that being 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes, which I think is really good. But I just think anywhere where it talks about a short or a brief call, it should be defined as that same thing, so that any calls that's made outside of work would be 15 minutes, would be only up to 15 minutes, so that they don't, because I wouldn't think they would need any more than that much time to use for personal calls on the state's expense. So I just think it would make it much more consistent policy if we had all those.
Teresa.
Okay.
I do not like that.
Hey, we can hear you, Melissa.
That I would just think it would be much better to do it that way. So if nobody has an objection, we'll just define a short or brief call for anything other than work for 15 minutes, or, I mean, for up to 15 minutes is what it says in that section, which is good on page 34. It's talking about permissible calls is what it's talking about. And the other changes are really good, I think. Says collect calls should not be accepted under any circumstances, which is true. And each division is expected to answer the phone during those hours, which makes sense to me. And so if there's no other objection, I think it's a much better policy now, and I appreciate the work on it. If there's no other objection, I'm going to move on to the next policy. And we'll change that to say the 15 minutes or less on page 30 from there. And then so that's 36711 DD, which I just changed, is from page 33 to 36. And so the next item on the agenda is 36720 DD, which talks about portable computing devices, which was part of this policy at one point, but now we've changed it to portable computing devices, which makes a lot more sense to me, and to those that was involved with doing it. So I think that was a very positive thing. And it's from page 37 to 41. And actually, I don't know if I have any changes to that one. I think it's, unless I'm forgetting something. I had to get some clarification on it, but I've gotten that, so everything is fine. So if there's no objection to that one as it is, then I would ask that we would approve it and move it on to the commission for approval at the next commission meeting. And it'll go out for, it goes out to public comment. The portable computing devices goes out to public comment. Is that what we're saying?
So we have been sending everything out for public comment. I think that's probably the right way to do it. So both that and the telephone policy.
Telephone policy is internal, but
Well,
I guess not.
they're both, I mean, I just think we're safe if we send them both out for public comment. If we're not going to, I would think the committee needs to make that decision that we're not, right? Versus,
Oh, okay, well, I'm not gonna say we're gonna overrule, but so you're saying the staff says that they should both go out for public comment, even though they're,
I don't see what it could hurt. In the essence of being transparent, I think it's probably the right thing to do.
Let's just do what staff wants to do, Barry.
say again, David?
Just take staff's advice on it. Let's be consistent with it. Just send them all out. If anybody wants to comment, let them comment.
Okay,
I
I wasn't gonna overrule, I was just asking. All right, moving on. I wasn't gonna try to overrule, but anyway, moving on. Anyway, we'll put them both out for public comment, and they'll be out for 10 days, and then they'll come back to the committee. And if there's any comments, we'll go from there. So, anyway, that completes the portable computing devices policy. The next item on the agenda is 10401DD, which is certifications and licensure of DDSN residential and day facilities. And that's another one that's surprising enough to me that I don't have any other, that I don't have any changes or any recommendations for that one either. And so if anybody else does, let me know. I'm happy to entertain anybody's ideas in that regard, but I don't see any. So staff did a good job on that one again, so that's good. And anyway, that's 10401DD, and that is a comprehensive policy, but I don't see any changes to it. So if there's no objection, that's going to move on to the the public comment again, and we will bring that back to the committee if there is any comments. If there isn't any, we'll have a lot of policies in January because we'll be moving through those very fast if there's not any comments, because we've already approved it once. So, or if there's no comments that the committee, that the staff wants to take up, and we'll go from there whenever we do that. But just remember, there may be a number of policies in January because we're trying to do some other things. It's amazing how fast this is going. I thought this would be slower today, but it's not. That's good. The next item on the agenda is in your packets from page 62 to 80, which is quality management, which is 100-28-DD. And the only thing I had to say about that one that I wanted to ask the committee's opinion about, if they didn't have an objection to, is on page 71. It says a wonderful statement on where it says ensure compliance with standards, policies, and or other requirements. And that's what this is about, to ensure compliance with standards and policies. That's what this policy is about. And so I think that it should be that sentence should be in the scope of this policy. So we should add that to the scope of this policy and leave it where it is on page 71. But it seems to be buried to me on page 71, and should be. And since it does ensure compliance and standards for our policies, it should be in the scope. So I was going to ask that we move that sentence to also to the scope of the policy, and ever how it should be fixed, so that anybody that read that policy, even the first page, would know what the primary scope of it was, which was to ensure compliance with our standards and our policies. So that was the only slight change I had to that. It's not a big deal, but I think that a lot of times when people are going through policies, they would look at the first page and sometimes not go through the rest. So if they did that in that case, at least they would see that. So so I would ask that we do that. And that is the only change I had to that one. And so if there's not an objection to that, then I will, and if there's any other changes anybody wants to make, I don't really have any. And so if there's any other changes anybody wants to make, let me know now. Because otherwise I'm going to approve that and move on from there. Okay, I don't hear anything, so I am going to move forward and say that for those that are listening, our next commission meeting is, I don't have the date in front of me. I should have it. It is November 17th. Is November 17th, a Thursday. And that's when we'll bring these policies, the ones I just talked about, that are ready for the commission for final approval at that point. And that's all I had right now. And the other big thing to mention is that it doesn't appear at this moment that we will have a meeting in December of the policy committee. It appears that we will not. And so the next meeting will be, it looks like will be January 10th, but keep on your emails because something could change. And we're very, as we've talked about many times, and I'll continue to talk about it for the whole number of years that I'm here, we are very fluid in this committee, and we will change what we need to change if we need to change it. And if we need to have a meeting, we certainly can, but we don't see any reason for it in December. So the next meeting is, as of right now, so the next meeting is like I say again, January 10th, and it probably will be 3 o'clock, just like it is now, as far as I know. And we'll go from there. So happy Thanksgiving to all. And if there's no I don't need to do this. I usually used to say we needed a motion and a second to adjourn. We really don't. So I'm going to say that if there is no objection, we will adjourn in about 1 minute, unless there's something that is informational that any other member of the committee would like to say at this time relating to the policy or anything else. And if not, we'll be adjourned in 1 minute. I don't see any reason to keep us any longer. We're adjourned as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.